Hi and welcome back to the channel, and this week the used car conveyor belt has bought us a little Ford Fiesta. And this car isn't what I would class as a disaster detail as such, however it's a real world example of a used car that's come into the motor trade that needs to be cleaned up for resale. And though the inside doesn't look too bad, unfortunately it has had a smoker inside, so we're going to need to scrub all the plastics quite thoroughly and shampoo the seats to make sure all the nicotine and smells are removed as best we can. So in this video I opted to take the wheels off. Two major reasons. One, as we can see on camera, the rear wheel arches are absolutely full of mud. And the second being was that the front alloy wheels had quite a bit of curbing on them, which I was going to touch in later on as we'll see in the video, and I wanted to clean the front and the rear of the wheel with a new product I've been trying out, which is like a brake dust and fallout remover. I wanted to see how effective it was on something that was quite ingrained and sort of been a bit neglected. So the process I've opted for here is pretty easy. I've just pre-soaked all the wheel arch with some Koshkami Green Star, probably a dilution ratio of 5:1, which is quite strong, and that's just eaten into most of the dirt, and I've just blasted that off. I've then gone over again with a second helping of the all-purpose cleaner, and I've also applied some snow foam on there as well, just to give it a little bit longer dwell time so the detergent can really eat into the dirt and work its magic. Then I've given it a good scrub with various brushes before rinsing it down. So I've done the same process on the rear wheel arches as well. I'm not going to waste everybody's time spending hours watching the same process. I know everybody loves to see the mud being blasted off, so with the rear wheel arches I've just shown the highlights of that, of all the mud being removed. Obviously I've then gone over with the snow foam and all-purpose cleaner and brushes to agitate it and remove all the dirt out of the more intricate areas. So once all the rear wheel arches are flushed out, I've decided to rinse the wash bay down a bit. A lot of people have been asking about how this all works, so what I'm going to do in the next sort of week or so is do a little video of me cleaning the wash bay and where all the mud goes and the water, etc., and how I designed it the way I did. So, and also everybody's been inquiring about the ramp, so again I'll do a short little video about where I got it from and how it all works. So what I've done with the alloy wheels is give them a coat of all-purpose cleaner, be the Green Star, obviously agitated that and then flushed it off, and then gone over with some Kosh Chemie wheel cleaner. Let that dwell for a while. As you can see on camera, it sort of turns to a purple colour. Then agitated that with the brush and rinsed it off. The stuff's pretty effective. As we see on the rear of the wheel, it took a number of attempts to get all of the muck off, and you're not going to get every single last bit off. But for a generic car that's 12 years old and not really had that much love, the product's pretty strong, and I felt it did a pretty good job at removing all the fallout and caked on brake dust. So with the wheels cleaned and back on the car, we can now look to do the engine bay and door shuts. Now this was I think it's a 1 litre 3-cylinder turbo, and I have had in the past a little bit of a situation where sometimes if you wash the engine bays, some of the water can just sort of get bypass the side of the coil pack and get around the spark plugs. So what I've done here is just completely covered it up with a plastic seat cover. Then I've weighed that down with a wet drying towel to make sure that as I'm pressure washing the engine bay, none of the water is going to get anywhere near those components. And then what I'll do later on in the video is clean that part of the engine bay separately with just a little bit of detergent spray directly onto the plastic, a brush to agitate it, and an airline to clean it out, which is pretty effective. It won't get it 100% clean, but you know, to show a potentially new customer, it's more than good enough. So door shuts are a really critical area that people sometimes overlook, and especially if a car's sat around for a little while, like this one has, it just gets a build up of sort of green gunge in there. So again, all I've done here is use some all-purpose cleaner and then agitated it with a brush. One thing worth noting, which we're about to see on camera as well, is it's really important to sort of go around the side of the tailgate from the back end, as we can see here, just get around the latches. And then what I tend to do is actually bring the top of the door shut down, as we can see here on camera, and just jet behind it, because sometimes if you don't do that, as the tailgate moves up and down, you almost get like a tide line. It's almost like green goop where it hasn't been washed off fully. So with the car inside the workshop, we can now look forward to doing the inside of the vehicle. And as mentioned before, it really isn't horrendous, but it's still got to be improved before the vehicle can be sold, and the most important bit is to try and get rid of that fag ash smell. So initially I'm going to go around the car with a small detail brush and the vacuum cleaner, just to knock off the dust and hoover it up. And as we can see, it's really important to do things like pull the steering wheel out if it's got an adjustment, just to make sure you can get behind there, because that area can really sort of capture a lot of dust and dirt and build up over a period of time. Once that's done, it's straight on the all-purpose cleaner, a little brush there to agitate it, and I'm a big fan of using an airline, compressed air. It's just very good at driving dust and debris and liquid out of little sort of crevices and areas. Things like on this door card, around the switch gear, maybe the door handle. It's just a really good tool to use in a workshop. So with the plastics all cleaned, we can look to clean the seats. So all I've done here is pre-treat them with a little bit of all-purpose cleaner, used a brush just to agitate them, and then use the wet vac to extract the water. So I have done the fronts and backs of the seats as well, but obviously for the purpose of the video I just showed the highlights of the more muckier bits, which is the seat bases. And the wet vac I'm using is a Karcher Poozy 110. I think I've had it for about 3 years. It's pretty reliable. I've had pneumatic machines as well. I don't think there's much difference between the two of them. I think the Karcher is a little bit more easier to refill and empty. If I'm critical, I think depending on which model of pneumatic you get, the capacity is a lot larger. Maybe got a little bit more suction as well. And as we can see from the screen, the bucket on the left was the water from the plastics, and on the right was what we sucked out of the seats. So a fair amount of dirt and disgustingness removed from the vehicle. With that done, and while the interior plastics are drying, I can get back to doing that little bit of central part on the engine bay. As mentioned, I'm just going to use a little bit of all-purpose cleaner, agitate it with a brush, wipe it with a microfiber, and then I'll just use an airline to dry it out. After that's done, I'll use a Grime product, which is good for dressing the engine bay, and also the plastic wheel arch liners in the front as well. So with the plastics inside the car now dry, we can dress them. I use Aerospace 303. It's a really good product. I've been using it for about 2 years. What I like about it is it's easy to apply. It gives a really nice satin finish, and the most important thing, it's not greasy or slimy or anything like that. Once it goes on, it's on there, and it's very nice to the touch, and it's long lasting and durable. Whilst the Fiesta was on the wash bay, I took the time to go over the vehicle and use some fallout remover, so that process has already been done. Here I'm just going to use some tar and glue remover to remove that, and then for the finale I've just gone over with some clay bar and a lube just to sort of remove any last bonded contaminants to the surface before giving it a very light machine polish. On this vehicle I've gone for Rupes Uno. What's good about that is it's a cutting compound with also sealing properties, so it's almost like an all-in-one. So one pass, you can leave it on there for a little period of time, then buff it off, and the vehicle's sort of cut, polished and sealed all in one go. So the damage on these alloy wheels didn't really warrant them being refurbished, and it wasn't really in the budget. So what I've done here is just use some cutting compound to remove any marks, and then gone over with some silver paint just to touch them in. And a little trade secret here, I use B&W Titan Silver. Now it's a really good generic silver and will touch in most alloy wheels and be a pretty good colour match. I think the only ones where it slightly becomes an issue is, for example, some of the Range Rovers have got a really sparkly silver and it can be a little bit darker, and then you'd use a different sort of code for that one. Same with some of the Vauxhalls as well, they can have a very heavy metallic and be a bit darker in the silver. And for the finale, I've gone over with some Grime spray sealant. It's just something new to me, and it's actually pretty easy to use. You just spray it on, leave it on the panel for about 10 to 15 seconds and then just rub it off. Does add extra gloss, it's pretty easy to use, seems to be quite cost effective. I haven't used it enough to sort of give a good review. I've then used their glass cleaner as well, and that really is a good product. So with the car outside, we can now do a little bit of a before and after. And what's great about this video is it's a real world representation of what happens to a car when it comes into the used car network and what some of them look like before and after. You'll see in our upcoming video we've got a Golf, which I think probably the next one. And again, that one's a good before and after. The rear arches, I'll show a preview in a minute, are absolutely caked in mud. The wheels are pretty disgusting, so it'll be a good test for our wheel cleaner. And I've also got coming up a Chevrolet as well, so that would be something a little bit different for the channel, so stay posted for that one. And as we can see, the alloy wheels do look really quite a big improvement now, and so does the rear door shut. It's little things and areas like this that really make a difference when somebody comes to look at a used car. If those areas are pretty grubby or look a bit tatty, it can really put off someone quite quickly. So as always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. The next one will be live next weekend. It could be the Golf we're seeing on the screen, or might be a Peugeot, I'm not entirely sure yet. Either or, they're both disgusting, so it'll be fun for us to scrape off the dirt and see what we can do to improve them. Until next time, thank you very much. Goodbye.